Hello, it's Judy with Get Real with Judy. Today's episode is from Jesus. Jeshua is the proper way of saying it, and that's his birth name, as I have said before. Then this is specifically from him because the month of December is celebrated with so much joy and happiness. You can go anywhere, and people that I run into are happy. They are so joyful, and they're giving extra. They're more thoughtful, and maybe they're that way year round. I'm just happening to see them now. But the point is, it's beautiful and wonderful, and I am very, very grateful. With that, let's begin a message from Jesus's heart. I bring you a message from my heart. This message it's important because this is a time when the world is being trained not to think, to simply accept what is said as truth. Powerful. Is that not powerful? While you're listening to the message, and when I specifically say, like that last sentence was specifically from Joshua, see if you go to your heart and listen and see if you can feel him. When I am with him and he's giving me a channeled message, I feel so much love and so much perfection and purity. It is so delicious. So I hope you get to experience it also. And you might already in your prayers, you may have that if you are noticing, acknowledging Jesus, Jeshua. Okay. Now, commenting about his message. This is a very important message to you, to anyone and everyone listening. Some of you are already going to say, I already knew that. The majority of you are going to have to think twice about this. This is so true. And because the master teachers are so pure of love, my interpretation is probably going to be a little bit more human understanding, and it's all perfection. So let me begin. Jesus says, individuals have forgotten the privilege of questioning. Individuals of this world have forgotten, many of them have, that in the questioning, it is not a dishonor to anyone to receive more information and understand of a topic or a concept. So what I would say to you today is to reclaim your birthright. Reclaim your birthright. And he's going to continue, and you're going to hear at some point, he's going to tell you that we are no longer responding to a slave race. That is not who we are. That is not freedom. That is not perfection. That is part of the first humans. And that has all changed. That we are, from this moment on, we are free. We are so free. And now we have to retrain our mind and change our beliefs passed on by our ancestors and the collective consciousness of all that is very slave related. And we could go on and on about that. And I'll be talking a lot about that in 2026 to help all sentient beings who are ready for that. Let's keep going. So Jesus says, because as free individuals, you have the right, you have the privilege, and it is your birthright to step into a leadership role and no longer be followers. To step into the role where you question, not through conflict, not through unkindness, simply with the question mark. Is that not perfect? So it's not about fighting and arguing and having to give your opinion all the time in a reactive state to whomever it is you're listening to. That's not what this is about. It's about stepping into your birthright, into perfection, into freedom and truth. And true leadership is learning to not take it on personally, to be able to listen and to be able to feel within your heart if this is true or not, and ask the questions. Google does not have all the answers. I'm sorry to tell you that Google does not, and AI does not either. So it is a new way of being. And this is what the master teacher, Jesus, Joshua, is saying. It is time to step up to your birthright and be who you are and be that leader who can be neutral, that leader who isn't judging or criticizing or pointing a finger and telling you you're wrong or calling you you know what? It's not that. Or it's not listening to different channels of information proving your point, how you're right. When do we really know what is true and what's not? The only thing you want to be concerned about, is it true? Are you just jumping on a bandwagon and you're being called to be who you are? And that is this beautiful soul, spiritual being that you are of perfection. And you are breaking the chains and disconnecting from anything from our ancestors that taught that were part of the slave race. That is changing. That is all changing. And what you're responsible for is to change your mindset and change the patterns and take on and step right into your perfection. I will continue. So Jeshua continues and says, you ask these questions and you can ask of anyone, or you just ask yourself and find the answer. I ask the angels to show me the ultimate truth, or my soul, if I need some help. Explain the concept of this deeper. I want to know. If you read something and then you say because you're one, you're connected, you're with your higher self. And in a very short time, you're going to be more and more in communication with your soul. If you're open, it's there for you. Okay. Ask the question. Okay, God, explain this concept of this deeper. Archangel Michael, I want to understand this deeper. I want to know to your God self, your higher self. I want to know. I want to explain this deeper. I want the absolute pristine truth. I would always say pristine truth. Where did you get this information when you're reading something from someone? Where did it come from? Is it from a source that has been known not to be true? Is it from a source that's not objective? Pay attention. How can it be verified? These are the questions that are timeless. Now, for some, you believe that you go on to Google and you ask Google. That's fine. But I'm going to tell you, Google, the fact check is not always truth. You're going to get the opinion of Google. And just be aware that this is about you going in deeper to your soul self that knows the absolute truth. Pay attention to your body. Do you get a sensation when you read something? When I read something and it upsets me, or I can feel a tension in my body, I already know it's not true. Walk away. All right. Then Jeshua says, you can take it back to the time I lived and ask the same questions. What you read about Jesus, is it true? Or am I being told out of control that this is the way it is? There will be things that I know I read in the Bible that aren't true, or I heard in a church that are not, I know it's not what Jesus taught. I just know it. Jesus taught love. So if it's not love, then where is it coming from? I love the fact that Jesus says, go back to my time and ask the questions. Start there. It is not technology based. Life is organic. You're brilliant. You're a co-creator with God. And you have a strong heart, a good mind. Busy it, busy it. And as you receive the answers to questions, decide for yourself the old age of 5 basic questions. And don't ever be afraid to ask why, to ask who, what, where, and how is this confirmed. And as you do, feel the strength in you build and grow. More and more people are going to a source online that can gather information in a split second. And what I know is you are going to forget how to use your creative self. Sometimes something that looks like it is the latest and the greatest has pros and cons. If you depend on that source, AI, over years, you're not going to be as connected. Trust me. And if you don't, you can try it, but do you really want to go down that rabbit hole and in a couple years be totally shut down to creativity? Your soul is creative energy. So depend on outside sources as just a source and go in and allow your creative self to come in and channel for you the truth. And if you're getting information, especially I learned this in meditation and I talked to Jeshua about it. And I wasn't for sure if some of my information was coming in correct. I saw it a little bit negative, like this is happening and that is happening. And I didn't go in. I thought by going within, I was getting the right answer. And what Jesus said to me was, say this. And it works. This is for you today. Step aside ego in the name of Christ. Now, you might be listening to this and you may not be a Christian, and that's perfectly fine. The reason we're going to say Christ is because that energy has already been established in our world when Jesus said, step aside ego in the name of Christ. Step aside darkness, step aside devil, whatever it is, but it's the ego. Step aside ego in the name of Christ. And then ask your question. It's very well worth it. And just so you know, I will put down and let me finish. Jesus says, thank you for listening, which I already said. But he says, because this is not a servant or a slave who asks questions such as this. This is a sovereign being that is choosing to define for themselves. I'm going to say this again. This is straight from Jesus. Because this is not a servant or a slave who asks questions. You're not a servant, you guys, and you're not a slave. You have the power within you to create whatever it is you want. So he says, because this is not a servant or a slave who asks questions such as this is a sovereign being that is choosing to define for themselves. You are a sovereign being. It is time for you to define for you. Thank you for listening. Down below, you'll get more information. You can go to real-community.com. There will be, look for on the homepage, you look for shields, and then you can also look for downloads. And in the download section will be all of the master teachers of their pure talk. And as Archangel Michael said, you will receive when you listen to it quietly to yourself. He says, when you listen to it yourself, you will receive a 75% more transmission because he is specifically talking to you. Okay. The shields are there, and there is also soul lineage processes that for a very low price you can buy, and you can activate them immediately, and that is healing, and the shields will protect your energy. With that, thank you, and namaste. Have a wonderful rest of the year, and next year, and years to come.